Hello, I'm Bob von Bargen, President Emeritus of the Armed Forces Heritage Museum and Program Manager for the Living History Program. March is Women's History Month. In recognition of that remembrance, I would like to relate a story of a remarkable woman, a woman who has been the charismatic leader of an organization that none of us ever would want to join. I am referring to Judith Young and her leadership of the American Gold Star Mothers. Judith and Jack Young lost their son, Marine Corps Sergeant Jeffrey Young, in the terrorist bombing of the Marine Corps barracks in Lebanon on October 23, 1983. Let us join Judith as she relates her experience in the wake of that dreadful day.
When Jeffrey was little, he always wanted to be a soldier. He was a gymnast. He used to ride a unicycle. I mean, he was wiry, daredevil. He climbed up on the top of one of the water towers. He was an outdoor person. He liked to hunt. He liked to go out when he came home and take his truck and go four-wheel driving and get stuck. I mean, he'd always have to call somebody to come get him out. He didn't really like school that much. His friends all went to college. He was the only one that went into the service. He had his close friends. And to this day, 30-some years later, on the anniversary, there is a bouquet of flowers at the cemetery from his closest friends. Jeffrey graduated from high school in 1980, and he immediately went into the Marines. Now, that is not something we did not know about. I mean, he had already joined before he graduated, basically, and he went to his basic training in September to December of 1980. He always wanted to be a Marine. Actually, both boys always wanted to be a Marine. And he graduated in December down at Paris Island in 1980, then went to Camp Geiger, which is the infantry, and then he later tried out and he was accepted into the reconnaissance. So he was with the Charlie Company, 2nd Recon, 2nd Marine Division. I got to go down to see him graduate, and I'll never forget, they all come running off the field, and I finally found him, and I went to go hug him, and he stood up straight and tall, and he said, "Don't touch me, I'm a Marine." So, we miss him very much.
What was he doing in Lebanon?
And they were part of the multinational force that had been sent over by President Reagan. He volunteered to go. All the boys that went to Lebanon volunteered to go. Actually, some of them re-enlisted. His best friend re-enlisted another 6 months so he could go. They were inseparable. And he was probably 2 heads taller than Jeffrey, and he had been in college for 2 years. His mother was not very happy that he joined the Marines.
What happened to him, and how did you learn about the tragedy?
Well, there had been several of them. Several of the Marines had been killed prior to the actual Marine Corps barracks bombing, which was on October 23rd, 1983. Some of them had done by snipers, some of them had maybe a few with a landmine or so. But on October the 23rd, a truck bearing actually the largest non-nuclear bomb that has ever been set off came through the barracks and went into the building, which was an atrium-type building. And it went into the building and exploded.
This past Sunday, at 22 minutes after 6 Beirut time, with dawn just breaking, a truck, looking like a lot of other vehicles in the city, approached the airport on a busy main road. There was nothing in its appearance to suggest. At the wheel was a young man on a suicide mission. The truck carried some 2,000 pounds of explosives. The truck crashed through a series of barriers, including a chain-link fence and barbed wire entanglements. The guards opened fire, but it was too late. The truck smashed through the doors of the headquarters building in which our Marines were sleeping and instantly exploded. The 4-story concrete building collapsed in a pile of rubble. More than 200 of the sleeping men were killed in that one hideous, insane attack.
One of the survivors who I have been in contact with for several years, or 30-some years. He actually saw the bomber himself. He was inside the building when the truck came in, saw him, and he tells the story that he saw this shit-eating grin on this guy's face, and with that was a blast and blew him out of the building. Fortunately, he survived. Unfortunately, I don't know if you would say he was mentally surviving because he's had a rough time of it. But the building blew up, and it was a 4-story building, and it imploded in itself and came down and shook all the other buildings around in Beirut. And it was at the Beirut airport is actually where the building was. That was the headquarters.
How did you learn of this? How were you notified?
I don't know exactly the time, but it was before dawn. I had this funny feeling. I woke up wide awake and something came over me and I could feel death. So I immediately ran downstairs and checked on my mother to see if she was okay. She was. I went back to bed. The next morning I got up and my husband's brother, who had been a Marine, called and said, "Have you seen what's going on in Lebanon?" And we said no. So we turned the TV on. We were just glued to the television for several days. My uncle had called and said, "We saw Jeffrey on TV." And I said, "Oh, where?" And he said, during the football game, they were running all kinds of interviews, etc., of these young men that were in the bombing. And he said, "I'm sure it was Jeffrey." So we got a call from Stone Phillips from ABC, and he said, "We'd like to come down and interview you." He said, "I want you to get all the people that can be available that know Jeffrey to come, and we'll show you this film clippings that we have." And it was a picture of 2 fellas in pajamas, and they were both carrying plastic bags, and one of them was about 5, 6, or 7, and the other one was about 6 foot. And we said, "That's them. That's Bob and that's Jeff. They're together." And Stone Phillips went around to everyone and said, "Is that right? And, is that correct?" And we all said yes, except Jeffrey's brother, John. And he said, "No, that's not my brother." So that night, we got a knock on the door, and there was 3 people standing at the door. And it was the casualty officer. He came in and he said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but, your son is missing." And we told him, "No, he's not missing. We saw him on TV." Wednesday, I went back to work thinking they were wrong, that we had seen him on TV, and everybody left because there had been somebody at our house the whole time. And we came home from work Wednesday night. We were by ourselves. We were sitting in the rec room watching TV, and the doorbell rang again. And it was the casualty officer.
One cannot fully comprehend what it is like to be a military parent and see the government car outside and the officer and chaplain at the door. But Judith and Jack did manage their grief and went on to assist other families who were similarly enrolled into the unwelcome Gold Star membership. In the next serial, you will learn about Judith's accomplishments as a leader of the Gold Star Mothers and her quest to erect a statue to honor the mothers who have lost sons and daughters in service to the nation. Stay tuned. It's a story of inspiration and, unfortunately, frustration. Stay tuned. And by the way, if you enjoy these serials and would like to support this activity, you can make a donation in any amount by going to the museum website, www.afhmus.org, and just follow the instructions under donations. And thank you very much.